Vital's B Practice podcast is proudly sponsored by Maxxis, Burgtec, and Industry 9.
You want to see something really funny?
Did somebody give you B Practice fan merch?
Yes, actually.
Wow. Oh, we need some of those.
These are awesome.
Wait, talk and show the camera again so I can actually see.
I will get fired. They
That's really funny. Somebody made those.
Yeah, and brought them to me, and I took a photo with that person.
Oh, that's good. That's
And
rich.
the team manager tried to take them from me, from my possession. He
like,
was
come
like,
on, dog.
These will not. I'm like, it's funny. Here, I think it's just podcast nature at this point in time when I am recording from bed, not a table. Because there's never a table, so the only place I can hide is in a bedroom. So why would we change? Why would we change?
All right, we good? Good, Dakotah. You look like you're reading something.
I'm ready to go. I was just looking over just preparing, dude.
You're looking at the outline?
Dude.
Yeah.
I'm like so much more organized version of myself.
This is a massive turnaround from last week. It's Monday morning. You're in a stable state. We're actually all here. It's good signs. Welcome back, everybody. Welcome back to Vital's B Practice podcast. We're all here.
Wow.
Yeah.
Sorry. I just want to first of all apologize for being missing last week.
It's
We've
okay.
lost him. He went MIA. Did it cut together nice? I haven't listened.
It did cut together nice. It was almost 3 hours long when it was all said and done.
My.
Yeah. So that was exhausting on my end to put together.
Man, getting everybody through their Monday, or Tuesday or Wednesday or whatever day you're going to work listening to this. We're here to help you.
Most of the week, yeah. We covered most of the days for sure.
Yeah, we had some good discussions in there.
The
breaking one, I think, was the big one.
We're going to come back to it in this one because Dakotah wasn't a part of it. So
yeah,
we'll get back to it. But no, it was all good. We got it out. There was back-to-back races, so it was asking a lot of mostly you to, organize your life, get from one place to the next, and it's all good. We're back now. There's a gap between, we're in a break now before Leger. Let's talk about Val di Sole, man. It was an insane weekend. I would say one of the sickest races from Val di Sole in recent memory that I can think of. Dak, you had another incredible weekend, going third in qualifying and then second in finals. I think we all thought you were finally going to have your first World Cup win until that last dude came down, Mr. Amaury Pierron, and spoke to everybody. Which my 2 cents watching it was that if you're going to get beat, at least you get beat like that instead of, say he beat you by hundredths of a second. I think that would have been harder to swallow, when somebody puts a bunch of time into it, it's not like, oh, I could have done this there, that there. It's like, all right, homie was on another level today. Not much you can do. He beat everybody by a massive amount. So, but first question, what was going through your head as you sat in the hot seat and you just watched rider after rider come down and not really get close to your time?
I mean, it was a good feeling, believe it or not. I went through the whole. I dropped 15th or something. We had a bit of an issue in the semifinal, unfortunately, and I was worried that I wasn't going to have a fair racetrack. And my first thought was, yeah, of course, that was a really good time. I think it'll stack up to the top 10 guys, and it wasn't even focusing on getting a podium. It was just okay, I had a good run and I'm happy with that. I feel I didn't really make any mistakes. But when I first came across the finish line, to me, maybe I was just tapped in, but it didn't seem like anybody made any noise. And I was almost afraid to turn around because I was ooh. and into 5th place. Like that was the worst feeling the week before when I went into 8th and I like still had 10 dudes to go or whatever, 8 dudes to go. And I was like afraid to turn around. I turned around. I was like almost like, oh, I went fastest. And I looked at the time and I was like 5.8 seconds or something. I was like, oh. And I didn't really realize at the time the gap was so big on the rest of the field rather than maybe like a couple dudes that went fast. So it was a good feeling sitting in the hot seat. And then I was like, the weather was like pretty consistent. But it was consistently like misting and a little bit rainy. So I was like, oh man, like the last thing I want is to be the dude that went down in the dry and won a World Cup because it was wet. Like I'm like, this would be the worst way. Like, of course, yeah, like it would be amazing to win a World Cup, but I don't want to win one like this, you know? And then
Do
the
you
last
think
guys
that's
came
true,
down and
though?
were competitive. I
Because
don't think the
I don't
conditions
know if it
really
was.
changed that much because like Loic was like I still did go like I think 2.5 seconds up on Loic, which he's a 5-time world champion. So I would say like my run was good for the time that I came down. And I don't know if it got better or worse. Dude, I'm not the weatherman. I can't predict that. But obviously, like I knew Finn was going to be super strong and I knew those top dudes were going to be really strong. And it was like, and I know how slippery it was when I rode. So I just feel like, man, it was like pretty cool, like to sit up there and have a good time and go through the thing. And it was like nerve wracking. Like after Finn went, I was like, wow, I might like it. When Finn went 1 second back, I was like, I could actually win this. And I had that thought going through my head very intensely for about 2 minutes. And then it was like, well, if he doesn't tuck the front right now and slide out, I'm out.
Yeah.
That dream's over. But you know, I mean, I tucked the front being last man down for sure. So I know what that's like. But I mean,
Heard that.
Amaury is, he rode really well. And we know what he's capable of. I think people forget how lethal that dude is just because he's been hurt for a bit, but welcome back. He's pretty good.
Yeah.
Dude, that was up there with like Aaron's run in 2012 at Val di Sole, I would say. Like
Or he's
immediately
15,
whenever
16,
wherever he was
15 or
like
16 when
8
he,
seconds up or whatever. Just as iconic, like immediately a historic run, you know, and plus the whole storyline behind him of crashing at the first round last year, breaking his neck, being out for a whole year. But I mean, I'll say it, this whole year I've been like, dude, he's playing the whole, I'm just trying to get back into it this year. But he is such a fast, competitive dude, especially once he's on the clock, that once he got that taste of knowing he could be back with, I believe, a 5th in, was it Poland? He went 5th. That was kind of all he needed. And then, dude, winning like this, it's cool to see because, like any sport, when somebody's out for a year or however long, naturally people just kind of forget about them. And he's one of the like best World Cup racers we've ever seen. And I think he's not even like really in the middle of his career just yet, you know, like he's definitely got a lot of time ahead of him. So it was cool. I love the way he rides. I love his attitude. He seems like a cool dude that loves racing and wants to win and isn't like afraid of celebrating his wins too. Like I like that whole vibe. Like he's like, I'm gonna freaking party with everybody. Like we're gonna enjoy this. We're not just playing the like, yeah, well on Monday we're right back to the grind, you know. He's like, dude, you know how hard I had to work for this? And like, yeah, it's cool. It was sweet. I was bummed that he beat you, you know, but he did look good all weekend. Like it wasn't maybe the biggest surprise to see him win semifinals. And then in finals, I was like, he's going to be really good. I did not think he would be like 5 seconds good, but
yeah, it looked like everything was working really well together. His bike, his technique, his lines, he found that flow that you need to have on Val di Sole, like on a track like that. It's like a big pump track.
Yeah.
He did a really good job at carrying like a high average speed around the track and opening a lot of sections that felt a bit tighter. And then he was just really good at forcing setups that carried a lot of rolling speed for a long distance. Like for me, the one that was really impressive was just like after the Enduro bus stop section, you go down the two walls, turn right. He opened that corner, which I went
Mhm.
inside. I went inside there, and he went outside, got the setup outside, and then somehow carried that speed uphill and around that Rudy corner and all the way through that next straightaway off the step down. And I was like, yeah, you put 2 seconds into me right there. Like I did not see the need to open that, and I was trying to make the track shorter where he was trying to carry more speed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I had that thought during his run. I'm like, damn, his average speed is so much higher, like visibly higher the whole way down.
Good, bud.
I did watch the race back a little bit last night, and because I was thinking more about you not wanting to win on a track where maybe the conditions weren't even for everybody. Like you're talking about like Finn was up on you at the top of the track. And to me, how the conditions looked and how the dirt looked, the further down you got, the less or the more consistent it became. Up top looked like where it was maybe getting wetter, the cloud coverage, all of that. But Finn was faster than you at the top. And I think a few people were. And it's like, okay, like that's where you think that time would be lost, but people are going faster. And then Dak at the bottom where it looked more consistent, you were consistently faster than people. So I don't know. I thought it was because there was like Win TV in finals, he kind of staged his recap of the race of like, oh, it was a pretty uneventful race until the last person down came because we thought it was going to be like a rain race, like going to be hard to touch the times from earlier in the day. And I'm like, I don't think that's really how that played out. Like looking at times, especially,
well, I mean, only two of the people in the top 10 dropped before Dak, and it was Dylan Maples and Danny Hart, and they were 8th and 10th. So it wasn't really like it was a 2017 Lords situation or MSA in 2017. But like it didn't seem like anyone went super fast early on, and then it was like just Dak, like you had your run, and it was because of some issues in semis, and like you obviously should have been in that top 10 when you dropped.
Yeah,
it's tough on the broadcast.
Yeah, I mean, I had top 10. I had speed to race at the front at Val's. Like, I mean, I was entering
3rd in qualifying too. Like,
yeah, and I mean, my qualifying run wasn't extraordinary by any means. But yeah, I was on pace before the weekend started. I think, I'm not sure about the rain, and some people said Dylan had a really good track. Debatably, I had a good track, debatably, but I mean, at the end of the day, you look at my time versus Loic's time. It's not like Loic, Finn, there were still top guys that dropped when I dropped and didn't do extraordinary times. So regardless of like the outcome, some things may have got better, some things may have got worse. It's really hard to.
Yeah,
it didn't just downpour. So.
No, yeah, I mean, even Dylan only dropped 2 people before you, 2 or 3. So it wasn't like he dropped super early or anything like that.
Yeah. Why do you think at Val di Sole we always see such large time gaps separating people? I mean, I think there was like 12 seconds in the top 10.
It's so gnarly. Like the sections are so technical that if you hit one well, you can make up so much time on people. Like if you grease a section that's gnarly and you enter it with like, for example, the first off camber, it was easy to put a second or 2 seconds into people if you hit that really good.
I think also there's a couple very crucial turns that are really tight. Like there's that tight left-hand turn. And if you stab the brakes in that and stand up, you're going uphill out of it. If that happens, that's a second, like pretty easily, like within the next probably like 30 yards or like 30 meters. If like you're going to lose a second over those 30 meters.
There are a lot of turns into uphills, turns that carry for a long, distance of time where it would be easy to just grab a little break because it's technical, and then you lose the speed for so long. Val di Sole is just a really good mix of tech, high speed. It has everything in one racetrack, and that makes it also so like if somebody's really good at one thing and not good at the other, it's a very fair racetrack. But at the same time, like you have to go fast there, you have to be good at everything. You have to be able to hit off camber corners. You have to be able to ride routes. You have to be able to ride bike park. You have to be able to be patient and be good at really patient, tight, technical stuff, long corners with roots in them. Like it's a wide variety, especially seeing all the ruts this year and also the racecraft to read the track of where is it going to be wet, where is it going to be dry, where do I need to have caution, where can I push. It's a very difficult track to like crack the code on and be perfect at.
Well, and then you have to add
be
in like
really good.
fitness aspect of it as well. It's like you have to be insanely fit.
It's just the overall grade and the impacts you're taking tends to make it difficult to one hold on just from like an arm pump standpoint, but also you get halfway down that track and it's really hard to want to push like through the bottom sector. The bottom sector is actually pretty easy, and you have to push pretty hard all the way to the finish line if you want to be at the front.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. The last, where does the, I don't know, I'm trying to remember like where the actual splits are, but say like the lower woods towards the very bottom where you pop out and go between the Val di Sole sign, like all of those, like the kind of rocky steps into the left into like the rock made right hand berm. Then you have that kind of like drop off little onto like what looks like a road cut almost. And then it goes into like big left, that sketchy blind drop that everybody was sending this year that looked pretty disgusting. All of that, like, yeah, it's like a little simpler, but there's so many things to catch you out. Like it's like the hardest little techie things to ride when you're really tired deep into a run. Like that every time somebody was coming into those bits, it was more stressful than like the techie bits at the top, it seemed.
Just like the last left-hander before you exit between the Val di Sole sign was so hard to hit right because you're riding down a rock face that like the rocks want to ping you and make you cross rut into the hole, and then you need to hit the hole perfect, not lean too much, get both wheels in it, and then be prepared to sprint 2 pedal strokes before you go over that jump. And if you get stood up there, it's so narrow and you lose that drive to the finish line, it's a high consequence.
Yeah. Do you think this is one of the gnarliest Val di Soles you've ridden this year?
Yeah, from Val di Sole has been rougher. I believe that Val di Sole this year was gnarlier in terms of like the first practice day was sorry, my hand's on the camera, so slippery. So there's like a ton of roots. They're getting polished. Everything's got mud. There's ruts everywhere. Like it was it was really difficult. And when I podiumed there in 2021, it was the complete opposite. It was moon dust. There was a bunch of holes you couldn't see. The track was really, really beat up, like bomb holed out. So I would like to think that they were equally difficult in different aspects. Val di Sole, when it has a bunch of dust and there's a bunch of deep holes and you're just constantly like hitting braking bumps all the way down the track, was more physically exhausting than Val di Sole this year that felt more mentally exhausting because you had to be so precise, have such good balance, hit everything really well. And then if you didn't, the consequences were really high because the bike would just go out from underneath you. So I think it was equally challenging, but in a different aspect.
That makes sense. I don't know which one I would prefer to ride. Probably the dry because that's more familiar to what we've grown up on. But yeah, it looked. I was watching our slow-mo video that we put out, and it's insane to watch how precise everybody's riding. Like you can see when somebody barely like will move their front wheel just a tad bit to miss like one route to then catch a double tire wide width like section that cuts you over. And yeah, I always think about how mentally draining a track like that is to ride and race. Like it's it's so hard to be locked in all the way down. Even when you're practicing it and you know your lines, like there's way more lines on this track, even if it's just, you know, through some of like those rock gardens, like, okay, I want to be just to the left of this rock and then pop over to catch the downside of this rock. And then at speed, it's like happening so much faster, and it's a lot.
Yeah, one of the lines like you hit Dak that was in the open turns on the underneath the ski lift was there's like a right hand turn and you kind of went above the rut and then kind of dropped down underneath it almost, and then you set up for that inside through the tree, like the field goal. And like watching that, it looked like you were noticeably faster through that than most people that were kind of like almost just riding the rut, because the ruts were like foot peg deep.
Yeah, my goal was to get out of the ruts, just because they just suck so much speed, especially like I didn't do it great in the race run. Amaury got above the rut. I think in the right-hand berm you're talking about with after the rock drop. He did a good job at getting above it with both wheels. I dropped my rear wheel into it. But yeah, just trying to stay like I knew you could ride the left or right after that, like with a high rate of speed. But I just tried to stay out of the ruts and tried to ride smooth lines, just because the track is so physically demanding that even if a line was like the same speed but more technical to ride, I chose the more technical line that took more patience, that was smoother, just because the ruts just beat you up in terms of like having to balance, like you risk like getting hooked or low siding, or like if I could just try to ride the bottom of a corner or get above a rut or just kind of move around on the track, like my whole goal for the weekend was to get out of those ruts, get out of the main line, and find, I guess, less. To me, when you hit the ruts, it's high consequence.
It almost seemed like the main line was more technical than getting out of the main line. Like what seemed like a more technical line of being out of the main line was actually less consequential than being in the main line and having to deal with the ruts and the roots getting shiny. Yeah.
That was my whole goal, was just get out of main line, get out of main line. I mean, I walked it after qualifying. I walked it after semis. Yeah, we I pushed it a ton the first practice before the race. I actually rode a line at the top that I don't think anyone's seen, that was much different than what the top dudes rode, and had some really good, kind of mixing it up, getting out, just not sneaky lines, but just well thought out. Need to get out of the main line. Like you've seen, I felt like I was probably one of the only dudes doing one of the main setups, like underneath there's like a long off camber that over the years like has been like one that we've seen a lot of clips from, and a lot of the guys were setting up next to the pad, turning in, jumping the tree roots just to get out of some of the roots in a right hand corner. But I just felt like I did a good job of getting out of the main line in general.
Yeah, that section looked interesting. You're talking about like where you can jump kind of high left to cut for like the rooty right, or you can like compress through the spring and then try to stay. Amaury hit that really well in his race run, like landed really high, a little bit of patience where you can see him like set his line and then just straight through that whole next ugly bit. That section is really cool. I think you can see people being really creative in who hits it or who doesn't hit it well, because that leads into a pretty flat bit, right? Like after you hit like that kind of boggy left, and then it's a little bit flat before you come into where like Tebow did the handshake a couple of years ago. No handshake this year.
No handshake. Yeah, I think you wanted to open that corner, and I think that I was like one of the only dudes that like jumped off the rock on the right hand side and opened that corner, but it was really gnarly and sketchy to do. Like it was really weird this year, because it was like they had been getting a lot of rain, and the groundwater, like the water table, was really high, and it was just like pouring out of places on the track that normally it wouldn't. And it was just like somebody had the hose on. And then when all the riders would ride through there, it would just drag the water down the track. So if you could avoid that spot and avoid where everyone was going, the track was a lot drier. So if you like, it rewarded, I think just due to the groundwater, it rewarded getting out of the main line just because the tires were staying wet for so long. So like, I was standing there on after qualifying, and I was like looking at where there was a spring and it was dragging water right before where Tebow did the handshake, and I'm like, man, why am I even dicking around with this? Like, why am I jumping in, turning into all these slippery, rooty shit? Why don't I just set up, jump over the water puddle, land up on the bank, and just ride way around the outside where no one's going because it's 3 times as dry? Then I crossed over where everybody was going and rode down the right-hand side where it was dry. I'm like, why am I doing this? Why am I riding in the exact same place everyone's going, dragging water down the track, and it's miserable? Like, who wants to ride through a mud puddle and then all the wet roots? Why don't I just like jump over it and go around it? I'm done with this. I've had enough.
You're like, I'm just trying to have a good time out here. Come on.
Dude, I was partying on the outside.
Well, you got
Around the outside.
Around the outside. Around the
there was
outside.
a clip somewhere of you in practice, and you jumped past the tree and way above the root. I didn't really examine it in your
Don't
race
know where
run,
it's
but-
at on the track.
Well, no, it was in that section where you gapped over the swamp, and yeah, but setting up wide, it looked like you had a straighter run into it, where you could get higher above the root instead of like knifing the turn and then yanking left.
Yeah, and running into the pad.
Yeah.
No. Mm-mm.
Another
I'm
question:
good.
did you hit a pad in your qualifying run right at the top on the GoPro?
I don't think so.
Okay. I know GoPro
Maybe.
Bike posted your run and I watched it, your qualifying run, and you like split the 2 trees right when you first section going into the woods. You like split the trees and there's like a tree on the left that you like look like you hit the pad.
Oh, dude, yes. I fully was drifting and ran into the tree, fully like whole foot was waiting for the rear wheel to catch the tree and just high side me, and then feeble grinded the root on the exit, and I was just like, I'm alive. I'm alive. I rode it at 2 times. I like 2 times the speed limit.
You were going
Completely
so
out of
fast. Like,
Out of control.
and
Absolutely
if you
out of
watched the
control.
GoPro, you were going straight at the tree. Like so fast.
Buddy. Yeah, like because I was like going below Maine. There was like a patch of dirt and turning right. But like so many people had went down, it started to get exposed, and then it started to like the roots started to come out off camber, and I just like, Jesus, take the wheel. Both wheels, I literally ran my wheels into the base of the tree and turned off the tree, and just my foot was against the pad, and then I couldn't get I got my front wheel above the root, but not the rear wheel, so I just like slid down it like you did with the rear wheel on the curb, like when you were a kid, and I was like,
Oh, that's sick. I'll have to borrow this GoPro clip.
Yeah. And you can like see me sliding off the back of the bike in the GoPro clip, and then I'm turned high, just kept going like it never happened. Gotta go.
I definitely look like the theme of this weekend. Like Amaury had a pretty perfect run in his race run, I would say, but throughout practice and yeah, all the clips, all the races, just in every category, everybody had moments, and like it was sick to see people have moments like that and just stay on the gas and just power through stuff where you're like, oh, that was gnarly. Actually, Amaury had a sick one where they do the drone follow, and he literally like the definition of pinballing. His rear wheel, I swear, bounced between like 4 or 5 rocks, but his shoulders and front wheel are still going straight. Those steel chainstays just flexing off of shit. Yeah, it was pretty tight.
I think it almost the people that ride off the back of the bike seem like they didn't do that well this weekend.
Except for Dak.
But I feel like Dak's pretty neutral, like pretty centered on the bike now.
Well, this is an interesting thing because I did do some changes, I guess, to the bike to try to get myself more weight over the rear wheel. Yeah, well, we can talk about that bike setup on another note. But yeah, I did do quite a bit. Don't get me started on the chromoly chainstays, what they got going on over there. But yes,
4130s.
actually, Amaury's bike was super thought provoking for me in terms of like how he has it set up, and then like what I felt from the weekend. And after watching his run and watching me, obviously our riding styles are so different, but like I sacrifice wheelbase to get weight on the wheels to get grip, and definitely like my bike, I don't think my setup on race day was perfect, but yeah, definitely made a lot of changes for sure. Oh, fruit delivery. My dog. See, I got a banana. I was feeling a little fried, so I needed some sugar. Make sure I'm on point for the potty.
When you look at Amaury's race run and his setup and the way he was riding this weekend, what are key takeaways that were thought provoking for you?
His wheelbase was really wrong, but his rider cockpit wasn't. Like I was sitting really wrong.
You're saying long or wrong?
It was wrong. It was definitely really wrong. No, it was I mean, obviously it was really right. I was sitting next to him when he was about to drop in for practice, and I look over and I'm like, there's some interesting things. Some I'm not going to bring up. Some we're just going to let slide under the table for all the nice people over there at the Commencal muck off. But he did have a 40 mil stem on his bike, and I'm running a 45 with 48 crowns. And I'm looking at him, and I was like, oh yeah, crowns are 48. He had a 40 mil stem, and I was like, I kept having an issue because I've found, and we're talking, the difference is 8 millimeters in terms of wheelbase. 3 on the front triangle, 5 on the rear chainstays. So that's 8 millimeters in total wheelbase. And when we say my wheelbase on the bike is 1332, I believe, at the moment, which is quite long. I've went to a much longer bike. I run high bars, and I personally feel like I look like my bike is tiny because of how tall I stand up and how high my bars are. But my bike is definitely not small. I mean, it's at the moment I'm on I showed up with a 494 reach, and I raced a 491 reach, which is quite long. And
how
ended
tall
up
are you again?
5'11".
Okay.
I'm not tall. And crocodile arms. Let's not forget this.
Yeah. That YouTube video has done great, by the way. I don't know if you've noticed
I've
that.
seen it on it. A lot of people on Instagram have commented. It's pretty funny. I mean, Tyrannosaurus, T-Rex arms, crocodile arms, they're all the same now. But so I shortened the front center of the bike 3 mil, and I was like, oh yeah, that's good. And shortened the chainstays 5 mil because I felt like my arms were like kind of maxing out too much, and I wasn't able to get as far back as I wanted to weight the rear axle to get like good braking through rough stuff. I've really loved the wheelbase being, like I said, 8 millimeters, very small, longer. And I feel like that causes me to use less of the shock, less weight into the shock because my weight is distributed better between the wheelbase. My bike feels better in the corners in terms of having the axle farther behind me. The bike doesn't sag in and unweight the front wheel as bad. And I really feel like I'm almost like getting ripped off the back of the bike in corners. Like I feel like I'm leaping out in the corner. So getting a 5 mil longer chainstay has really helped that feeling. And definitely learning, like going from a bike that the chainstays got longer when I hit a corner rather than a bike now that I'm riding that the chainstays get shorter when I hit a corner. So it's completely the opposite. So I've had to adjust my static wheelbase to account for where I'm at on sag, or even deeper than sag while cornering. So it's with my style of spring to damping, or like my suspension setup in general, my bike doesn't necessarily have the best amount of support turning in a berm, although my bike suspension platform is very good at turning in a berm. compared to the previous setup. But there's so many pieces to the puzzle in the environment that I'm working towards, like going from the intense to the Mondraker. Like everything is backwards, including my racing style now is exactly backwards to what it was on the intense. Like I've literally had to reteach myself how to ride the bike and how to race in my race strategy. So back to the point of what I'm doing, like I said, I shortened the wheelbase, and that the compromise to that was it didn't feel as well on steps. It doesn't feel as stable. It didn't feel like I had as much support turning, but I was able to get more grip and get a more planted ride feel. While with the shorter wheelbase, I was getting a ton of chassis rock, just like front to back motion. We call it like the hobby horse when the frame is doing seesawing. So yeah, quite a bit of changes to the bike this week. Like I said, small changes to most people in the world, but for me, these are huge things. Amaury's setup, I was like, oh, light bulb went off. And I was like, and I used to train and ride and bounce a bunch of ideas off Nico. I asked him, I was like, dude, why don't we run a longer front center and a short stem? He's like, I tried it. It doesn't work. You have no front wheel grip. And obviously, like we know now, I've learned now that Nico's style and his needs are so much different than mine. Like things that work for Nico haven't necessarily worked for me, or he has a desired ride feel that is much different than what I'm looking for. So I was like, oh man, maybe I can like get my wheelbase to be a bit longer while getting my rider cockpit a bit shorter. I've really enjoyed matching the stem length to the crown, the crowns. And I'm excited to try that this week because I looked at his bike and I was like, oh yeah, okay, light bulb moment. Like, oh man. And then watching his run, how long his wheelbase was, how he was able to carry speed, how he adjusted his riding style to the length of his bike was quite intriguing to me. And like I'm excited to put my GoPro up against his, see kind of where he made time, where he didn't. I haven't done it yet. I just seen GoPro put it up, which is will be quite interesting for me, being one of the riders that I'm able to run a GoPro in the race, thanks to the good people at GoPro Bike that take care of me. But yeah, we'll see, man. That was a pretty interesting moment.
Yeah, I think you could see that, like you're saying, shortening your bike and stuff in the last turn, like that last left-hand turn. Like you were feathering that thing like a flat track bike. It was. I saw you like stand it up to grab traction. I was like, all right, respect.
I started to lose it for a minute there. I was like, oh no, that happened. Like I was actually listening to this. I'm gonna go off on another tangent here. I was actually listening to this Peter Park Gypsy Tales podcast, and they were talking about a lot about a rider narrative, right? And it's like the narrative, the story that we make for ourselves, right? I need this, I didn't need this. And I think like I do that quite a bit with the overall, but like in that moment, I wasn't thinking about wheelbase. I wasn't thinking about, all I was thinking about is I need traction. And I lost traction, gained it, recovered, turned, made it through the corner in 1 second. The amount of judgments I made that I didn't even know I was making in that moment was unbelievable. That was like, and then I go back because I never look like that. And I go back and because I remember hitting that corner and being like, fuck it. Like I went deep and braked and I was like, push all the way to the line. The only thing I was thinking, like, breathe, focus, and push all the way to the finish line. And when I went up the ski jump, took a deep breath, and like looked at the corner, set up the corner, and then I went in so hot, and I was like, coming out of that corner when I was getting ready to go to the right-hander, I was like, oh my. Like I couldn't, if it was a practice day, I could never do that again. That was like heat of the moment. Nothing on your mind other than exactly what you're doing. And I wasn't thinking about anything else in that moment. That was like really cool. When you look back at it and like, I think there was a clip from Leo Gang too, when I hit this left-hander and roasted the tire and blew the top off the corner. That wasn't planned. I was just committed to the corner. And like we lost traction, recovered traction so fast. Like these calculations that the brain does, like, dude, it's like freaking really cool. When you like look back at the cliff and you're like, there's no way I could do that again. I couldn't do that. Out of 10 runs, if I tried to do it, I would either go down or not be able to break traction every time. And I like two-wheel drifted that thing like Sam Hill. And I was like, yeah,
Yeah,
You
that's
did.
it. Gangster.
that was sick. Mhm. But yeah, that one made me think. I was like, he did something with his bike this weekend, because usually the bike doesn't look like that.
No. Dude, it just made it smaller.
Yeah.
We've tested a ton on a flat track at Duffy, and I was like really liking the long wheelbase, and I'm still liking the long wheelbase. But how do we get the wheelbase numbers without sacrificing me, like
Yeah.
feeling like I'm feeling like
And-
I'm like about to dislocate my shoulders every time I go off some step.
Yeah. What pressures were you running in your tires?
22, 28.
All right.
It's kind of a
Low.
big gap.
But it's so
I
steep.
qualied out in 22, 27 in the dry, and no inserts, 22, 27. Yeah, went up 22, 28. Didn't want to break the rim. But yeah, low pressures. Running, those are low pressures.
Yeah.
I think I had a note in here somewhere about that, but do people run inserts very much anymore? Like that was such a hot topic for a while, and it seems like you don't hear about that as much.
I think the aluminum rim guys run inserts. Like
Okay.
I know Specialized Gravity does, but I don't see a lot of the carbon wheel riders running inserts as much anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I think
Interesting.
tire technology has advanced quite a bit too.
Dude, we say that, but I
With
think it's more
most-
rim technology.
Mm-hmm.
Because I ran the exact same front tire that I was riding 5 years ago. Nothing's changed.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
Exactly
like,
the same tire.
I don't really know. I mean, if Maxxis is like the biggest player, I don't think their DH casing has changed at all.
It
Since-
changed from when it went to 29.
Mm-hmm.
Because
That's a long time ago now.
yeah, so like that was like 2018, 19. Because there were
17,
some problems happening in
Mhm.
17,
Yeah.
18.
And there were some changes, and there's some really promising changes coming. Like
Yeah.
I've been able to
But-
test some stuff with Maxxis, and unfortunately, I haven't been racing on it overseas. But man, there's some cool stuff coming, and it's going to be awesome. I think we're finally getting to the point where there's a lot of other competitors to Maxxis. Maxxis is not necessarily like, I mean, I think they make a great product, and I think their product, I mean, obviously there's people winning on their product. It's really, really good, but there's more competition now. So Maxxis has had to like fire it up and like, you know, push forward, which is cool. I mean, competition makes for better bike products. And I think that if we had more competition, the products would be evolving faster, you know, but it's just cool to see.
Mhm.
Yeah, because I was gonna say Schwalbe, Michelin, Specialized have all changed their downhill casing.
And
Mhm.
Conti has come in with
Yeah.
the
I would say
Conti tires.
Conti is probably the biggest one. They've
Yeah.
got to be
Yeah,
pushing. They're the ones stoking the flame under Maxxis, because Maxxis they're still great, and they were so ahead of everybody for so long. And I'm on the same thought as you, Dak, and from chatting with Aaron over there, they're in the same headspace of like, yeah, man, like it's rad that we got people making good stuff, because we're always motivated, and now we have even more motivation to create great products beyond what like we're making. Like there's the evolution continues. But I would still think that wheels, maybe tires, I would agree, tires have had a big part in it, but it seems like the wheel tech, people put a lot more thought into wheels like the last couple of years, with even just doing the thicker bead wall, and how much that helps not pinch flat or like slice tires is pretty significant. Because a lot of like,
I think now that
tire-
you say it as well, is like the tire profile that the wheel technology has kind of been more conducive to better tire profile where everyone wanted a flat profile for some reason at one point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think there's a
And
bunch of
that-
factors like that, you know, and even I mean, like, you guys are on new E13 wheels that I believe aren't out yet, but like there's been like Envy definitely has some new wheels that you see on people's bikes right now, and everybody's going to a lot more front and rear specific. Like everything about the wheels is a lot more thought out than it seems like it was whatever 5-6 years ago. Yeah, and it's not just, I don't know, there's more thought to actually having a wheel that can move and take impacts versus just being super strong and bulletproof, you know? So yeah, it is interesting because like carbon wheels, I feel like forever I was like, I'm not gonna run carbon wheels because they just explode whenever something happens, you know? Like I'm gonna run aluminum, you can kind of weather a storm better. And now it's like, I think carbon wheels are less problemsome and they're fucking bulletproof nowadays. Like they can be so strong and not beat you up too bad. Yeah.
Yeah, it is funny seeing Troy still on the old what is those DT wheels?
Is it
Aaron
511s?
Bro, so is
he's-
Specialized.
Or
They're on the narrow 471s.
yeah,
I think.
that's what it is.
Fives,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how that works because I historically never went through wheels when I raced, and I went through every one of those wheels I ever owned. Those things were like, maybe that's why they like them, is because they're compliant. But the things are freaking made out of butter, I swear. Yeah.
They feel pretty good. I think that wheel, man, it feels pretty good. We're getting there with our carbon wheel. Man, our carbon wheel feels pretty good now, which is really exciting. But yeah, I mean, I think aluminum will always have a good feel, but they're just high maintenance. I mean,
Yeah,
for that one run, I think they feel great, but man, like if you run a Cush core, they're definitely going to flat spot, and if you hit them hard, like they just don't hold air tubeless anymore. And you know, that is like a really, really cool argument to like look at, is like the carbon wheel is really good at this, this, and this, and the aluminum wheel is really good at this, this, and this, and it's crazy. I think at some point we'll have a carbon wheel that like will be everything, you know, but it just takes time. It's just like you know, like everything else, it takes time to develop this.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Like for me personally, I still really love the feel of an aluminum downhill bike, but I'm sure if the carbon bike is done right, it can feel as good, but it also could be really stiff.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there's inherent properties with those materials that will always give them certain characteristics, but we sure have gotten different things out of each one depending on like how they're applied, you know, even looking at like handlebar material and stuff like that. There's a lot into it for sure. I'm still kind of the thought that like your everyday mountain biker, you're going to be pretty stoked on whatever bike you get as long as it's like mostly current, but that's a whole different topic. What's up with your rear hub? Speaking of wheels.
Oh yeah,
What hub? What are you talking about?
it doesn't exist. It's not there.
Yeah. It sounds like it
Hey,
doesn't.
man.
It sounds,
It sounds
Hey,
like it
man, I
doesn't
sure do.
sound.
What? Huh? Who? E13, man. I sure do love E13. Goes fast. Sounds good. Well, what I can hear of it. Ain't
I was gonna
much.
say, I'd say what hub? It's more like what engagement, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. Honestly, I don't know where we stand with this. I think that the patent's out. I think that there's more information on it now. Obviously, I've been a part of a development process of a new hub that is like really, really good. I started running it the middle of last year, and about when like we started coming on fire with the old intense project over there. And we had a new rim that I actually started testing last year at Val di Sole. Was the first time I raced it, and we've continued to develop the rim, which the rim is getting really good. And it's been really cool to work with the E13 guys. I have to give them a big heads up because they've questioned a lot of things. Like when it comes to like spoke tension, it's like why do we run this spoke tension? Let's test this. Like what is a good vertical and horizontal stiffness number for a carbon rim? Like what happens if we do this? What happens if we do this? How can we make it feel better? How can we, make it corner better? How can we make it go through rocks better? And also like from the hub, it's like they're looking at what there is in the industry, and we're like the entire industry is going more engagement, bigger buzz, more sound. They went, oh, what are our racers doing? What are the race teams? Do the race teams, are they putting more engagement? What are we doing? So the hub is pretty cool, and it's definitely a really good system that I think is for everyone from downhill racers to I think I would run them on my enduro bike at home just to take some of the chatter out of the drivetrain. And yeah, I think that we're living in a world now where people want to enjoy their experience going downhill, and this is a product that makes that better. So it's pretty cool. Not a lot of engagement though.
Interesting. I won't poke too much more.
Yeah, I don't know. I think somebody posted the patent for the hub, and I think it's more well known of what's going on at this point in time. But until then, I'm just going to keep eating my banana.
Yeah, patents and all that stuff's fun because then everyone on the internet gets to tell you how it works.
Yep.
Yeah. And then because it doesn't actually matter what it does. It's just knowing how it works. That's what people care about. Nothing to do about the benefit,
No.
I sat around for a brief conversation on it, and I was like way more caught up with what you thought the benefits were than how it works. Because I'm like, when I'm riding, as long as it's doing its thing, I don't really give a shit what's happening.
Right.
I just want to know what.
Wild.
Yeah, I mean, you were
it's like
you were without going into like what's happening or maybe whatever. Like, you definitely were attributing a lot of the way you're able to ride your bike and the way your bike's performing to the like what it provides.
Dude, I take like 4 pedal strokes in a parking lot, and it feels like somebody hit the gas. It's like when the e-bike motor like keeps running after you're pedaling, you're like, whoa, this thing's really quick. So, and yeah, a lot of other, it's really good on minimizing pedal kickback and things like that. So yeah, it's really, dude, it's exciting. It's a cool project to be a part of, and yeah, it's like the E13 guys are like really into taking feedback, and whether it's positive, negative, they like directly come every week. They're in the pit, involved, learning, like boots on the ground, which is like, I'm really super impressed. Taking feedback and trying to go forward.
Yeah,
Sick.
pretty sick.
I dig it. I'll hit up E13 after this, see if they want to sponsor the podcast.
Come on, boys.
They can't sponsor it for wheels though, because we've already got Industry 9, so they're gonna have to come on with like cockpit components or drivetrain pieces or something.
We're gonna have to beep some of this out. We're gonna have some conflictual. Hey man,
every time he says E13, you're just gonna have to put in Industry 9.
Yeah, it'll just say
Industry 9.
Yeah, or it'll
Industry
just be
9.
like unidentified wheel manufacturer. Wheel manufacturer A. Okay, finishing up some random things I have for you, Dak, about your weekend. What's in the box? You had a little box on your down too.
It's just my data system. So our engineer Pablo built a system from 2D, which is like a supplier, and yeah, it's our data system that we use.
They have the numbers.
Yeah, we have numbers, lots of them, all kinds.
Okay.
I don't really know what they do. I look at the pictures.
That's how I read. That's how I read books as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good at it. Got any other questions for me?
Yes.
The peak.
Oh.
Peak extender.
Peak extenders are cool.
Dude, I was taking no risk. I actually drilled a hole directly through the center of my visor and zip tied it on with a drill.
Yeah.
That hurt to do, But
You got to do what
gotta
you
do
got to
out
do.
here. Gotta do what you gotta do out here. After my big old belly flop face plant last week, my visor was a little scuffed anyway,
was
so
gonna
it didn't hurt
say,
so bad.
yeah.
Scuffed.
Did you run tear-offs?
Mhm.
I did. I had 3 tear offs on. Didn't pull any of them. Peak
Smart.
extender was doing the job.
Good.
Sometimes all you need is a extra peak.
I don't think my GoPro from my race run came out because of the peak extender was so long.
Oh, really? Like it's in most
yeah.
of the shot.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh well.
Yeah.
What are you gonna do? Other question I have is, how much money did you make this weekend?
Total.
Better-
Yeah, total
just
from bonuses and
bonuses.
everything.
This is what the people want.
Yeah, I know. This is
good for the sport.
this is what the people don't want me to say.
Why not?
Probably
Well, okay, there's more
enough,
people that want it than don't want it. So
Yes.
but the people that want it don't pay me. That's the problem. No, it was pretty good. I mean, I'm on a pretty traditional bonus system, like not super crazy. But yeah, I probably did all right.
it's
Freshen
okay.
up a couple of the 4-strokes, I mean, hey, little dough. I'm not getting rich, but it's
More
not
than 10
rental
grand?
no, not something in the region, maybe enough to
Maybe kinda,
maybe
sorta.
pay for my YZ250 project build. It's now paid for. Pretty
Solid.
cool. Which wasn't, somewhere in there, somewhere around there.
Yeah.
Nothing crazy, but yeah, I mean, some dudes like have pretty crazy bonuses for sure, but no, I'm happy. Life is good. Move on. It's cool when you do get a little bonus money. It's I try to spend bonus money 100% on things I want and like gifts to myself rather than like I try to save really well with what I make. But yeah, bonuses are kind of like above. I mean, once I pay taxes on them, it's kind of my money to spend on myself. So yeah, it's exciting. That's what pays for dirt bikes.
I like it. I like that thought process. I mean, it's money that you don't plan to exist anyways. So,
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I mean,
Um,
it's good. Help pay for some of the machine rentals to get the moto track back running.
there you go. All right, we've talked a lot about a lot of things, but in issue 9 Buzz Report, kind of moving along here, getting into things not between the tape that happened this weekend. And going back to you talking about having your data stuff on your bike, we talked a lot about using front and rear brake last week without you in the conversation, because Troy's been running a 220 rear, 200 front for different reasons, yada, yada. I'm a big believer that I use my rear brake a heck of a lot more. So 2 questions for you, Dak. Do you log data on how much you use your front and rear brake? And which one do you think you use more? Or do you know which one you use more?
Currently, we are not running brake sensors
Okay.
in our data system. I do now have access to brake sensors, and I'm trying to get some brake data this week. Out of my personal research, I definitely use the rear brake more. I definitely think that the front brake has more power. I think that if you have power in surplus, that you do not need as much front brake power. I think that for a downhill athlete, and I also think that a lot of front brake power will tend to put a lot of flex to the fork. Now, I think like, okay, yes, you could tuck the front because your brake locks up easier because you have less weight on the front wheel or whatever. But also you should like think about how much the fork flexes, also how much the fork flexes under braking forces. And that would have an effect on the way the bike rides as well.
That's all I need to hear. You said you use your rear brake more, so.
But he did say his front brake is more powerful.
It's
It's
true.
going to slow you down more, right?
That's how you use it. That's all I heard.
Dude, we are not on asphalt. We are not road
So-
racers. We don't have sticky tires.
you want to make your argument, Tanner, about braking in a straight line, and that's why you use your front brake more?
Yeah, like that's like I brake in straight lines for the most part, and that's like I use my front brake a lot more.
Do you ever just like come into the corner and then just jack the rear on and give it some Wu-Tang and shit and get on out of there?
Just brake slide into the corner.
I do it
No,
all the time.
it
I'll be
just
like
stands
braking into a corner and I'll be like, well, I ain't gonna make it. And I just let off the front and
I think sometimes I would say if you're gonna like Scandi flick or something like that, like you're like setting up your front wheel high into a corner, like I'll brake slide in that situation, or if it's like just super tight and you just like tight
need
switchbacks
to get
or
it on
something.
through there.
Yeah, but like in general, if I'm gonna slow down, which is what you're trying to do with the brake, is I'm gonna use my front brake more, and then I'll use my back brake to straighten out, like to keep my bike straight. Because the back brake is gonna mess with your suspension more so than the front brake is going to, since like you have
Is it?
linkages and stuff. Yeah.
Is it? Do you think? What do you think? How much do you think the bushings bind when you're front braking with the front brake in the fork?
I don't think they actually bind that much. Unless you're like, unless you're literally just stabbing it, unless you're stabbing it and like really just grabbing a handful. But how often are you grabbing a handful of front brake?
So, but how often do you grab a handful of rear brake? So it sounds to me like you brake more with the rear.
No, because I would say I grab a handful of rear brake a lot more than I grab a handful of front brake.
I like your thought of, I think that if you were to look at the braking data, the rear brake is used more, but I think a larger portion of your slowing down and stopping power comes from the front brake, even though you use it less.
That sounds like a key thing, though. No, I think that, like, if I'm thinking about the way I brake more with my rear, but the way I use my rear brake isn't as I'm modulating more with my rear, where my front is in more key sections where I need to slow down a lot. Not that I'm like just yanking on the front brake, but I might be like getting more power out of it in those moments where I need to really slow down, or my rear brake, because I can use it more often and keep the bike in control, where the front has a tendency to want to like push or tuck or pull or whatever it might be. Like, I don't know. I mean, even like watching this weekend, there was so many sections where you're hitting bumps over rocks and roots, not in a perfectly straight line, but you're having to consistently be decreasing your speed into a corner. And like, you have to be able to like drop the anchors, like rear braking with like your weight heavy on your bike to keep it planted and grip, because you start like trying to, I mean, if you're going to use the front brake to slow down a lot, you need a little bit more weight on it to keep traction, right? And you don't really have the opportunity to do that the steeper and rougher a track gets.
So
yeah,
like,
and that's
off of that, I would say that on a track like Val di Sole, if you're gonna like the swamp in practice, like the high line set up right, and then you kind of hit the road, and then it's like sort of man-made rock garden, kind of like, and it's got 2 steps to it. That section, I would use more rear brake, because I would think that I would need to straighten the bike out more. And to straighten the bike out, you could just like grab a little bit, get a little bit of rear brake, and it would straighten out and keep going.
So we did this with Frida, actually. She was always saying to me, she's like, I can't slow down. I ride these tracks. I don't know how you slow down. Like, how do you slow down? And she never she would always drag the rear brake and barely brake with the front. And so she would just drag the rear brake everywhere. And she would like never be able to. Now, for our listeners, when you're riding a lot of steep stuff, you have to like brake hard, and then you have to like, you brake hard with your feet, your heels dropped, squatted almost like a pumping position. Brake hard, and then you actually let off the brakes, change directions. That you can't brake and turn at the same time. Your bike will never track. So you brake, you let off, and then you push your feet in, you steer with your knees, change the direction of your hips, its shoulders, and look where you need to go. Do your turn, and then brake as hard as you can. And that's the only way to control your speed, change directions, and then get stopped for a corner through a steep section. So we actually did some easier riding on easier trails with her where she only braked with the front, just to understand how much the front brake stopping helped. And then also how much front brake you could use before you lost traction or started to push the front. And so she could push the front or like feel the front slide without the rear being a part of it. And then we added the rear brake back in, and then also did some braking drills with her where she had to like stop with purpose.
Mhm.
And that's like what we call dropping the anchor, or dropping your heels, weighting the bike, loading the knobs, and stopping as hard as you can with both brakes in a straight line in a very like productive, I guess what I would call it, a productive manner, where you're like, it's the only thing you're doing in this one section is braking. It's like I've had this talk with like a lot of brake engineers too, and I'm like, yeah, but you guys, like by the time we have initiated braking and the bike starts stopping and the rotors are warm, we actually have that like hard braking with purpose. If you don't have enough power, you've already went through the place where you're braking with purpose, and now you're dragging it through roots. You're braking in the corner. Like this is like we need as much power as possible for these key sections of braking.
Yeah.
But
What's your thought on Troy's reverse rotor size concept? Like, I think if I'm remembering right, his reasoning has to do with a less grabby front brake just for consistency. And then it also has to do with heat, right? But
I think he's trying to pull the levers the same amount, like
Okay.
to be able to put the same force into
Mhm.
both levers.
Like a similar bite, or whatever you want to call it. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's 100% valid.
Are you going to do it now?
What brake is he running? Code or Maven? I think he's codes, right?
No, he's Maven.
Yeah.
I mean, those things are really powerful, so it kind of makes sense. But Shimano's to me have that very aggressive all power when you kind of want them. Maybe not the most nowadays, but yeah, I mean, I would say
I don't think they have Maven power. I'm really happy with my Shimano brakes.
They don't have TRP power. Like, no, Magura.
I mean, I do not have a problem of too much power.
Yeah,
I'm not living in that world, so I don't think we can relate, because I'm not trying to run a less aggressive rotor or a less aggressive pad because my brakes have too much power. That's not a world I'm living in. I am quite the opposite. I'm trying to get as much power as possible to get my large stature slowed down.
Your large stature. I like that.
This dump truck is out of control. Gotta slow down.
Well, if you pull some, or you have access to brake data coming up, it'd be fun to revisit this topic and just hear. And then Tanner, you and I got to get something going this fall. I'll have to get some sensors and all that. And I don't really know what the angle on it would be, because on one hand, it'd just be fun to put on your bike and see if what you feel or interpret the way you brake is what's happening. But then, yeah, go ride a variety of trails with different features and like where it forces you to brake different ways, and just see like how a few of us respond to that and how you brake. Because I've always thought I brake really even, but if I think about it more, I still think I lean on the rear brake more throughout an entire descent. But like, I remember in high school, I put a GoPro on my handlebars, pointing at like it was on my seat post, pointing up at my hands, so you could see like my fingers braking. And I had not thought much about braking before then. And watching me in a run, how constant I'm moving both fingers and modulating, and like it's pretty even, it's very like off. And then when you need to brake, it's like both. But I don't really know what that separation of power is. To me, in my mind, it's still, I'm pulling more with my rear in a lot of situations, just because for me, it has to do with traction and how loose it is where I grew up. But like, it's really fun to know that for sure. We'll have to run the numbers. That's all there is to do. Let's keep moving down our buzz report here. Ronan Dunne. Ronan Dunne sounds just like Josh Bryceland. Was that not that was the best thing I heard all weekend?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's funny, dude. He's a funny dude. He's got it good too.
I thought he sounded like Bryceland a little bit earlier this year, and then to hear him do an impression that's impeccable, he needs to really lean into that at some point. I don't even know what, but Burner Kerr crashed out. I just have that note in here randomly because there's other people that also crashed out, but that was a bummer to see.
Someone told me that he had done one run, came up for the second run, stopped, said it was the gnarliest run he had ever done, rode 20 more meters and knocked himself out.
Yeah, like on his GoPro, he didn't get knocked out, but he definitely knocked his head, and it wasn't a bad crash. He just split out on that first, right when he hit the first gnarly section, kind of the off camber, and like bike went away, and it sounds like he hit his head right on a rock. So yeah, that sucked to see. Hopefully he's back in Leger soon enough.
You know what's way cheaper than that suspension service your bike desperately needs, or less of a hassle than finally replacing those C-frame bearings you said you would swap after last winter? Slapping on some crispy, fresh Maxxis tires. Doesn't matter if you've got a month-old whip that came with some questionable rubber, or you're still rolling around on 26-inch wheels like it's 2013, Maxxis has got you covered. The tires of choice for the world's fastest racers. Whether they're sponsored by Maxxis or not, you can visit your local shop or favorite online retailer to get the same tread patterns and compounds. UK components brand Burgtec has long designed and developed components for racers and everyday riders alike. Well known as the cockpit of choice for shredders like Veronique Sandler and Josh Bryceland, they recently picked up the Trek Factory DH squad and the Yeti Cycles team. So look for Richie Rude, Mick Hanna, Loris Vergier, and Sacha Ernest all racing this season with the signature white and yellow Burgtec badge. But I do have to warn you though, as the Burgtec website is honestly a euphoric dark trap of mountain bike componentry. It's hard to leave without finding something you didn't know your bike badly needed. Anodized UDH hangers and axles? Yep. Titanium frame bolts? Of course. Offset shock bushings? Add to cart. A true one-stop shop for all the finer details and contact points on your bike. Make sure to check everything out at burgtec-usa.com.
Hot off the press, Industry 9 just launched their new Hydra Grade 300 V2 aluminum wheel set built for downhill racing, bike park smashing, and e-bike ripping. The rim features i9's triple cavity hollow beadwall technology that significantly reduces pinch flats, increases impact resistance, and minimizes beadwall deformation in the event of a harsh impact. Dubbed the strongest aluminum rim Industry 9 has ever created, the Grade 300 V2 wheels are only offered in a 32 spoke count and a 27.5, 29, and mixed wheeled configuration, and retail for $1,430. Check them out if you're looking for some problem-free wheels that can handle a serious beating.
I think that's enough of that. We've talked a lot about a lot of fun stuff. So, Maxxis make or break section. We've already covered the track and its state this year. But Dak, what was the key section you think maybe was a key to the race? Or, well, it's hard to say because Amaury kind of put it to everybody throughout the whole track. But like, what's one bit throughout practice or in your race run you're like, I need to freaking nail this, and once I'm through that, I'm like gonna carry that momentum?
First off camber. Like
Right.
you go, the first section was so high speed, you come out of the corners, tuck, you're ripping right-hander, left, and then you put the anchors on, and it's so hard to calculate how much you need to brake. Under brake, over brake, it was slippery, a bunch of roots, you either got it good or you didn't. It set the tone into where the section Loris made the mistake. You know, it's like, I would even say like until that flat rock garden, I would say like that was kind of the make or break section, because we seen Lloyd get rattled right before he entered there and lose his flow, and then did not have like a good execution through that section. We seen Loris get through there pretty good, then make the mistake, and it kind of like that was like that's where you're going from. You have maximum traction up top, it's great, and now you're trying to suss out how much traction is there. You're while braking incredibly hard through roots, rocks, setting the initial tone for the first section of the track, trying to read terrain. It is what sets the tone for the race run, because it's the first taste of the real track you get once you've left open bike park corners.
Makes sense. Yeah, it did look tough to read. How much time was there between your last practice in the morning of race day to your actual race run?
3.5 hours for top guys 4.
Wow. Yeah, that's pretty insane. That's a lot of time for weather, racers, all of that. The track is changing a ton. Anything else with the track? I feel like we've covered it pretty in depth up to this point.
I know you got a note about them kind of doing a prep on it or like filling in sections and that kind of stuff.
They were just trying to diverting water off the track. I think they did a great job. I mean, the track guys had their hands full. The track was incredibly soft. It was deteriorating quickly. There was running water going down the track. To be fair, it looked smooth, prepped, great for track walk. And man, the water table was so high. I guess I would say the water table or the mountains weeping water. I don't know the correct term for this, but
yeah, just like the amount of springs
there
coming
was
out.
springs everywhere. It was really tough. I think they did their work. The track was smooth and great shape, but it just got beat up so fast because it's so soft.
Which made for a gnarly, proper racetrack. You know, if anybody ever complains about them filling in stuff there or whatever, it definitely cut up, kind of always does, no matter what. If it's dry, it just blows out and it disappears. So moon dust, pixie dust. Should we keep moving on? Get into some racing, do some recaps.
Let's do it.
So.
Dude.
Sick. Starting with junior women's as always, Ellie Holzbosch. First career win, does it with authority, 10 seconds up on everybody else. I think she had the fastest time.
Fastest time of the day for women.
Pretty sick. Barely edges out Tawny. Hauling and super loose. Like pretty rowdy run, proper Val di Sole run, and that was sick to see. Also takes over the overall lead with that, with Heather Wilson sitting out, who's been leading the overall this whole year. Sounds like she had a crash in qualifying and had sustained a concussion. So that's a bummer to see. Quite a few people are kind of falling off with minor head injuries this year. Cami Blanche being another one. Bernard, as we mentioned. So hopefully Heather, everybody else is able to recover in these few weeks and get back for Leger. Other than that, Sacha Ernest in second, Arisa and Leuven in third, Ellis Vegby in fourth. Sacha and Aris kind of right where you'd expect to see them. Both looked good. Had good weekends for the overall with Heather being out of it. Ellis Vegby in fourth was crazy because she had a massive slam. And I think she was on pace to be second in the second World Cup. So props to her, back-to-back fourth places, and could have been more. And it sounds like she'll be at Leger now as well. So stoked to hopefully see her put together another good run and be up there. And then Kel Cushman in fifth, another fifth place for the American. Congrats to her.
Yeah. It's sick to see in the junior categories, like kind of in general, is that most of the riders are not on the big name teams. There's like Aris is on Commencal or whatever. And then
LA on Union.
LA on Union, and then Muck Off Young Guns with Heather Wilson.
Yep.
It's basically just Sacha Ernest on Track Factory Racing. That's the only one on like a big team. And then the same thing with junior men as well, with Ace on Frameworks.
Yep.
So
yeah,
kind of cool
I agree.
to see like those teams competing, like more so like it can be more competitive in those classes than they maybe can be in the elite men or elite women classes.
Yeah, I agree. It's a cool vibe having almost say the categories that are bringing riders up developmental and then to be on teams that have a similar structure. It is cool to see. I agree. And it probably takes the pressure off, like you're aspiring to do well as get on a factory team when you transition into elite. So
it kind of reminds me of like with moto, like PC, like Pro Circuit.
Totally.
Or like
Star.
Star when they were before they had the 450 riders, or the other Yamaha muck-off
Mhm.
Club MX team. So
Yep.
yeah, it's sick.
Yeah, I'm
Stoked
about
on
it. And it gives attention to some of those smaller teams,
Mhm.
with they're getting podiums,
Yeah,
And these junior classes that we keep talking about are only getting more competitive. They're super competitive right now as it is, and that'll
Yeah.
continue into the future. Overall, going to Leger for junior women, Ellie moves from third into first, 195 points. Reese remains in second, but goes from 20 to only 5 points back. Heather Wilson drops down to third, back 30 points. Sacha Ernest holds on to fourth, but moves up from 65 to 45 points back. And then Tilly Melton holds on to fifth, 95 points back. Tilly also had a crash in practice and sprained her wrist and wasn't able to race. So hopefully that all gets sorted going into Leger. Junior men, Max Alren, back-to-back wins. Pretty sick to see, 2.5 seconds up on everybody else with a really impressive run.
Mhm.
Jumps up to second. The overall would have been seventh in elites, which is always insane. Maybe the track was a little bit drier, but still really impressive. Asa goes second. Sounds like he hurt his shoulder in practice with the crash, which probably was a factor on such a gnarly course. But we've been talking about him all year. He's kind of proved that he is the one to beat. What was your guys' thoughts on actually seeing him get beat? I mean, second place is still great, but I think that for me, it's shows that there's some competition in that class, and it's not just aces to win maybe every round.
Yeah.
I
I
it's
think
good for him too.
Max Allren, we talked about it last week. His style and technique, it's like really good, and like he rode really well.
Yeah.
Seemed like he suited that track suited him a lot. Asa looked a little uncomfortable. Probably doesn't have as much experience in wet routes, being from Colorado, and also got whipped real hard in that top corner.
Oh,
left-hander.
Savage.
Got whipped and did a whip in a corner somehow.
Those flat ground
Dude, that
whips
corner
get you.
was slippery. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. We started at the same time. That corner was slippery, dude. It was marbles. Like,
Yeah.
I drifted for like 30 foot before I hit the corner, but it was literally like somebody had just like dumped a dump truck of bubble gum sized rocks in the bottom of that corner. It was so
Dippin' Dots.
gnarly. Yeah, dipping. No, dude,
Bubblegum.
straight up gumballs.
Okay.
We were riding on gumballs.
The Gumball 3000 was coming through town.
And it was so much grip in it. And then you go into that corner in the race run, and it was wet, and you couldn't see how many rocks were there, and it was just like riding on marbles. It's pretty easy as a first-year junior, hasn't raced there, read the track all weekend, but doesn't have the depth of history of how the tracks change year after year with the conditions changing. It would have been pretty easy to tuck the front there.
Yeah. Yeah, he is lucky he held on to that, because that one was gnarly. Those upper corners looked so hard. Like, in my mind, it's always like the part of the track that's just getting you to where it actually gets gnarly. But this year, dude, they were cut up and everyone had holes and sketchy little ruts to hit. So somebody else crashed in the corner after where Asa almost went down in their race run. I'm trying to remember who that was, but
Pinky.
yeah, that's right.
Yep.
Pinky. Yeah, that was a bummer. We'll get there. All right, let's keep breezing through juniors here. For anybody who did not watch the race, Milan Falquet in third, continues with the consistency this season. Dope to see. John Moselle in fourth, second best result of the season. Really sick run. I thought he looked great on track. It'd be cool to see him in Leger, see if he can carry that speed, because he's riding for the We Are One team. Yep.
With Mark Wallace.
Canadians on Canadian bikes.
Yep.
Pretty sweet. Let's see. Moving down the list here.
Was that?
Did I have? Oh wait. Do I have some of my notes here wrong? Was Luke Wayman in fourth or fifth?
He was in fifth.
Okay.
I know. I think in the Win TV, it said he was in fourth or something. But yeah, so he's in fifth.
He's had a good year, consistent as well.
Yeah, I think this was Christian Hauser's first final of the or first good result of the year. He was in the finals at Poland, but
Yep.
I think he
First
went
decent
down.
result for sure.
Yeah, so it was good to see him get a result. Hopefully, he builds on that, and then from there, Ryder Lawrence as well. Good to see him in the final, and yeah, was in at Fort William, and then kind of had some crashes, I think, or mechanicals the last couple rounds. But yeah, 10th, pretty solid result
for sure. Yeah, always good to see, especially. I mean, we're biased to all the American riders coming up and trying to make it happen.
Yeah. Is Dak, do you know, is Randy Lawrence working on his bike, or is he at the races?
No, he's got a mechanic, but Randy's just been hanging around at what races he can. I mean, spending time with his kid, trying to coach a bit, just monitoring. You know, he's just around. He's not the mechanic.
Okay.
Dane Jewett was on a podium run before he crashed into the catch net. Those damn catch nets come out of nowhere, man. Snag you up. Bummer to see, because he was on a good run after getting the leader's jersey last round, and then loses the leader's jersey now, but still in it, you know. I think he's chasing that first win, and it's going to happen soon. So cool. Overall, going to Leger. Acer regains the overall lead, the 175 points, but Max jumps from 4th to 2nd, and from 28 to only 13 points down now. So tie one for all of them. Luke Wayman holds on 3rd, but drops from 10 to 20 points back. Dane drops to 4th, is now 29 points back, 29 points back. And then Milan Falque is remains in 5th. My notes are so bad. It says remains in 50th. Remains in 5th, only 43 points back. Alrighty, moving on. Elite women. Tani takes her first win after her whole season off. I think this was her first win in almost like 3 years. So pretty sick to see, especially on a track that she's vocal about not enjoying too much, but on paper has done well there in the past. So it's not unexpected. And yeah, I was stoked just to see her be back doing it, back in the mix. She's had a good season going. So
yeah, insanely good season.
Yep. And interesting, she in her Win TV interview was saying that she knew she was going to get tired at the bottom, and so really laid it out there up top and was fastest in the first 2 splits, and then faded throughout, but that paid off. Where it seems like in the men's race, it was more about keeping it tapped all the way through, and you know, she played tactics, and it definitely worked out for her. Marine Cabarrou in 2nd, always so good on these gnarly technical tracks. Closes in on the overall by 75 points. Yeah, sick to see. Monica Hasnick in 3rd, fastest through the lower woods. She was pinned, looked really good. Best result this year as well.
Another one that said she doesn't really like the track, I think.
Yeah, I know. It's maybe that's like part of the head game is you tell yourself that you lessen the pressure by lessening your expectation of yourself. But Miriam in 4th, a really good weekend, going 1-2-4 with quali semifinals. 2nd on the weekend in points coming out of it. Yeah, man, just looked like back to her old self again. Super controlled and confident. Valley in 5th, she's making a habit of these, like, goes down and crashes and then gets up and still has crazy splits to finish on the podium. So, like, nuts. Didn't maybe look or seem like she felt super confident this weekend, but she was on pace for 2nd, more or less, with how her splits were going, and just didn't get taken down by the black snake. Got taken down by the white slippery rocks. So, yeah, which looked way more easy to do. There's not as many roots as there might have used to been. Just blew it. What could have been story of the weekend. What could have been story for most of our fantasy teams. Yeah, and that one sucked. I mean, 2nd and then 1st with semifinals, and crashed in practice and broke her hand. Yeah, man, just not stoked on it. I don't know if she'll be back for Leger. It'll be a tight for that. So
I was gonna say, luckily, it's only 1 race and then a real big gap.
Yeah, it's cool if you're a professional downhill racer. You get a summer break still. Get the whole summer off. Unless you're
Yeah.
XC, then you got to go to Olympics. But you're downhill, you're coasting. Dak's just going to be hanging out at the beach in Tennessee.
Yeah. Not coming to Whistler.
Yeah.
Going to Florida, going to Croom. No, I think I'm going to be in Whistler.
You're going to Whistler.
I think so, yeah.
For
I think I'm going to go
Frankfurt.
to second week. Yeah, just hang out. I mean,
What do you mean by the
alright.
second week?
what?
Like during the week?
Yeah, during the week.
Oh, that'd be
Yeah,
insane.
I'm pretty much just coming to ride Dirt Merchant.
I actually don't know if they have any other trails anymore.
I
that's the
heard
only
that
trail.
everything was closed, but A-Line and Dirt Merchant.
Yeah. A-Line, Del Boca Vista, Dirt Merchant, Del Boca Vista, and A-Line. It's the only trail that exists there.
Afternoon Delight.
Mm.
Yeah.
Actually, everything on Creekside is really good.
Might ride a Ninja Cougar. Maybe.
Oh,
But it's got a lot of bumps on it. Maybe too many rocks. But only maybe to get down to ride Dirt Merchant.
yeah.
It means
But-
to
A1.
Yeah. Maybe some clown shoes. You got to get the skinnies practice in.
Don't push it. Don't push it. There's only one way I'm going down the top of the upper mountain is it's so I can get to D1.
You will like everything on Creekside now. Because it's been a few years since you've been to Whistler, right?
Yeah, the last time I went, they had built like Earth Circus and like.
Uh-huh. They got a
hadn't
few
rode
things
any-
over there that are good. They're fun.
Nice.
And you get change in vibes all the way down. They're also exhausting. It's a long ass run. This is
I
a
got
weird
a big
tangent we're
summer
getting on.
planned. I'm going to Hafayao to ride the jump trail, and then I'm going to Whistler. I got 2 weeks.
Is that when the Battle Raw is happening at Hafio?
I mean,
We can make
called
one
by
happen
people.
in Whistler.
Oh,
that's true.
That
what
would
if
be
Jason and I filmed your Vital Raw?
Hold on. I got the camera for it too. Hold on. Right here, dude. Let's go.
I think I've got the same camera.
Oh god, can we keep this moving along? I love this tangent. We'll make the plans. We'll get the bottle raw going. Look at that. You guys can film each other.
Oh, dude, yours is way more high end than mine. All right, keep
We've
moving.
got-
Come on, keep moving. We got the dad cams up.
We got A cam and B cam. We're good.
It's true.
You can
It
get
cuts your
two
filming
angles.
in half. Yeah,
Yeah.
every shot twice, but
Mhm.
once. I don't even know where we were. Cami Blanche also didn't race. She was third in qualifying. Sounds like she's still dealing with some post-concussion issues after hitting her head in Leo Gang. So tried to do semifinals, had a slide out, called it while she was ahead, which is smart and good to see. And she seems like she's content with the process she's on to being back more long-term. She knows that sitting out a few races might be what it takes to be there later on in the year, which is cool to see. Valentina Rose Sanchez in 8th, her first elite final, as well as Lisa Boladu in 11th. Super sick. They were so strong last year in juniors, and it seems like it's taken them a little bit to get into the flow of elite. So to see him finally do it on an early track and just be in the mix was cool to see. What else? I think my last few notes here are from Leo Gang. That's outdated. All right. Overall, going into Les Getz, Valley holds on to first with 1,175 points, but Tawny cuts into that. It's now only sitting 229 points back. Marine remains in third. Goes from 313 to 238 back. Nina is still in fourth, 495 points back. Quite a big gap there now. And then Anna Newkirk holds on to fifth, 535 points back. Elite men.
We got ourselves a race there.
We
in
do.
elite women.
It's tightening up. I think Valley will probably come to Leger and win again. She's been like doing the flip flop.
I don't know. That's like basically a home race for Tawny.
It's true.
And it was her last win back in 21. So
Yeah.
also Miriam back on form.
Mhm. Did she win there last year as well? I think she might have. I feel like that might have been
2 years ago.
I can't remember. That might have been her first win back last year after her back injury. Yeah, but it's getting snug, the top three in points in elite women. But those also are gaps that if one person has a bad round, it'll extend quite a bit. So hopefully they keep just battling it out, you know. Yeah, it's kind of the same thing with elite men's. Like Loic has had a really big gap on everybody else, and it got tightened up a little bit with his 5th place. Like Finn cut into it a little bit. I think Troy did as well, but he's still got a comfortable little lead going. Getting into elites race, Amaury, as we talked about, insane race to come back from. His last win was almost 2 years ago in snowshoe. So to just bounce back, like, it's epic to see. It'd be cool to hear more from him just about all of that. I think a lot of his interviews, he's so flustered after winning the race. He's like hyped and stoked, but I'm sure it's setting in now just what he's done, and it was cool to watch.
Yeah, and even if you don't have HBO Max or Eurosport or whatever, you can watch his run. Is on the Whoop UCI Downhill YouTube channel. So
yeah, I think
watch it there. It's very worth a watch.
100%. Is his GoPro run, his winning run, up now?
I believe so as well.
Okay.
On GoPro bike.
Yeah, I haven't watched that yet, but I want to because I'm sure it's mental. His GoPro runs are always sick. Finn in 3rd, or I mean our boy Dak in 2nd, of course. How could I forget?
Just no note.
Huh?
You better watch it, buddy. You're on thin ice.
We
might
already
just be
talked
the
about it.
co-host. Might just be the co-host on this podcast. But let's talk about my overall. Come on, get me back in there. Come on.
Well, where are you sitting in the overall? You 8th now?
7.
7?
It's salty. I'm salty about that. Well, actually, let's not talk about it. Let's keep moving. We gotta go.
You're still in the mix. You had a good weekend for as far as points go, even though you weren't in for semifinals, but still solid. Better than last weekend.
That's very true.
Yeah.
All right. Let's keep going.
Keep it moving.
Keep going. We gotta go.
Finn's in 3rd. Epic weekend for him. Didn't seem like that thumb injury was really holding him back. Had good attitude all week. Like, it's cool to see. Kind of just waiting for him to have a win this season. I think it seems like his intensity is super intense. Homie is like freaking focused and in it, and then maybe in his race runs gives her too many beans. I don't know. It's hard to tell.
Like he was really like happy, but unhappy. Like he was like felt like with the time he gave up, the mistakes he made, he seemed really frustrated with himself and frustrated that like he wasn't able to maybe make up more points than he did. Like had a rough race, and Finn I think wanted to capitalize that, and then seeing the results was like, oh man, like I could have really made the jump in the overall to try to tighten things up. I think that's his biggest goal for the year. So like 2 races, 2 podiums, but overall I think he really wants to win.
I noticed his bike setup's slightly changing. You think you have some influence on that, Dak?
His bars are coming up.
Yeah.
I think it's just him evolving to the new suspension system. From what I know, they got on the system preseason, and it took a lot more effort to figure it out than they thought. And I think we're just seeing his bike start to evolve through the season as he's racing more tracks on a new system.
Okay.
Cool. I like it. Yeah, he's jumps up in the 2nd, the overall again, goes from 350 points back to 276 behind Loic. So still cuts into it, maybe not as much as he could have if he would have won the thing, but yeah, I love that battle of that team and him and Loic, and finally beat Loic this year. So there's a pro. All right, moving down the list, Troy in 4th, solid, composed as usual. I think he's one of my favorite dudes to watch race, especially on tracks like this. He's so precise and calculated. Good result, stays in the overall hunt. Loic, as we're mentioning, in 5th, worst race of the season, but still hangs on to the overall lead. I mean, when 5th is your worst result, ain't too shabby. And he seems pretty vocal about not always getting along with that track, and seemed like he was aware of how much it was changing and that was going to be difficult for him. So I'm sure he's probably content coming out of this weekend, everything considered.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. I'm going to keep ripping through these. Ronan in 6th, another solid result. not as wild as maybe we're used to seeing from him. Maybe that's a sign of him maturing. Sounded like he was not into the track at all in his Win TV interview, which is pretty comical. He was just like, happy to get out of there, have a decent result. On to the next one, please. Let's not focus on this too much. Ocean O'Callaghan in 7th. Backs up a good round in Leo Gang with another top 10. I'm just stoked to see him having such a good season after winning last year, to like not let that first win pressure hold you back from like knowing that that's not the expectation every time. It's cool to have top 10s and be up there and be in the mix. So yeah, man, stoked to see. Kind of on that same note, Jordan Williams had a horrible weekend, unfortunately, and blew out his knee in practice and is out the rest of the year, going to need surgery. Maybe the opposite a little bit of Ocean, just after having his first win last year and had been kind of clawing himself back to be on that same form that we know he can be. So that one sucks. Like, I've got shitty knees. Knees are not a good thing to mess up. They just take so much time and they're such fragile little joints. So all the best to him and getting speed recovery, and see him next season. Dylan Maples in 8th. This might be my favorite feel-good story of the weekend. Gets his first top 10. Just talk about like dealing with pressure. I don't know if the kid actually knows what pressure is, because he just gets on that team and is like, instead of being like, I'm stressed because now I'm on like a factory team after being a privateer last year. And instead he's like, I'm just going to use all these tools and have a good time. And like, I'm freaking really into racing my bike. And yeah, man, it's like to see top 20 in the overall. It's rad.
Dude, yeah, that was so good to see. And yeah, it seems like the rougher the tracks get, the better he gets. Like the steeper and rougher they are, which is a lot like what he rides at home. But yeah, he just loves gnarly tracks.
Yeah, man, freaking little gym rat, it looks like.
Yeah,
and he's fit.
He rides so much like Amaury as well.
Yeah,
Wow. He
like...
told me he doesn't have a trainer either.
No.
He just like goes
He
to the
just
gym, does this thing, and
throws
that's
weights.
it.
Yeah,
Yeah, I was like, whoa,
I love
crazy.
it. Old school.
dude, and like it's just in like outskirts of Sacramento, and which is like not a place that's conducive to really doing well at racing downhill.
What do you mean? You got North Star?
Yeah, in the summer,
That's
but
true.
he's gone all summer.
He had North Star.
Yeah, had it.
Yeah. He's just pulling the Aaron move where you just like prepare all off season, not doing the thing that you do prefer as a profession, and then you just show up at the races and you get into it, you know? Makes it yeah. Stoked for Dylan. Will be really fun to watch him in Leger. I think he'll continue to do well. And it's cool, like you were mentioning, like he rides so similarly to Amaury, and they seem like they get along real well. Like Dylan is a really cool kid and like down for having a good time and all that. And what better person to kind of be shadowing, you know?
Yeah, and going off that, it's really cool to see someone go onto a French team and seem to vibe well with it. Just because, like in the past, like it wasn't until Loic that like people could like that the French actually like were learning English and stuff. Like Loic changed that, and now like it's good for us as English speaking fans to have all the French riders like basically know English, because we certainly don't know French.
It's true. I don't think anybody's going to try to learn.
It's not happening. Dak's not, yeah.
To say Dak's
I will
done that.
say, I would know a lot more of what's going on the side of the track if I spoke French.
He's got to get that
Whenever
Google
I'm
Translate
around
out.
English goes away real quick. I always got Nick's all likes team, and I'm like, hey, English,
English.
English. What was that? I didn't hear you.
Did you say inside or outside was faster?
I didn't hear which one was faster.
I think we've decided on a primary language for the sport of downhill racing, and it's English.
What? Heard it here first, folks.
Yes.
All right, moving along. Danny Hart in 10th. Another good result.
Yep.
Always love to see the Red Car Rocket doing well. And he's had a good season, all things considered, dude. Like switching bikes in the off season, new teams, 2 new bikes, settling on TT finally.
And then switching sizes of bikes as well.
Yeah, I mean, doesn't phase him. He's like, I've been here, I've done that. He was probably there in 2008. Who knows? Yeah, it's sick to see, and he's got another good dude to watch race. Like such rad style, so unique, very iconic. Jacob Jewett in 13th, super good ride. I think that's one of his best results to date, but maybe not his best. Definitely his best this season. Some really sneaky inside good lines. Yeah,
good for the fantasy team.
Good pick. Another good pick. Our boy Dante Silva in 16th. That him and Dylan. I mean, we're all biased, but so hyped for Dante to be up there again. Like he's had kind of a tough go this year and last year. Like a lot of things that were out of his control did not go well, and just to put it together and have a good weekend all the way through. You look good. Yeah, man, it's sick. One of his best results thus far. So keep that momentum.
Yeah,
keep it going, kid. Loris, bad momentum, not a good weekend.
We talked about this last week.
Usually he goes up, and he's been going up and down, and now he's stayed down twice. So,
but I said last week that he doesn't do well when the conditions change drastically,
but he did well in Poland.
But the conditions were slowly changing.
Yeah, but this week it was slowly changing. At least on race day, like it was changing. I don't know. Whatever. I mean, I don't disagree because he's such a calculated rider, and so I think that as those conditions change, he maybe it takes him longer. Maybe he backs off a little bit. Like he's really composed, so he's obviously avoiding getting sketchy, which means as conditions get sketchier, you're going to back it off to stay composed. Most likely, you're not going to hang it out there as much.
I think he was just trying to ride it like it was still good, like it was still qualifying day or semis day, because and then he just lost his rhythm.
Yeah, I think the rhythm one was bad. Yes, Dak, you can answer.
The section he had a mishap in was causing havoc. It was so slippery, and that was so easy to do because as the weekend went on, we kept riding the first off camber faster and faster, and you kept entering that section, which he had the mistake on, at a quicker pace, and it was ice in the race run. Like absolutely almost impossible to touch the brakes, turn anything. If you did anything, you were on your head before you knew it. So really easy to make the mistake he did.
Yeah, and it definitely looked like it compounded. Like that mistake that high up and setting the tone for the rest of his run. Maybe it showed him how slippery it was, and that made him more cautious. Maybe who knows what his tire choice was as well. I'm sure that was a really big one for this weekend.
I mean, he almost went over the handlebars. At that point in time, after that has happened in a race run, you just ride down.
Count your blessings.
I mean, even riding down on that track from making a mistake that high up would be so difficult after you already have made that mistake and you're just like trying to get down. It's would not have been an awesome circumstance to be in. But with a mistake like that, I think 18th was like still pretty impressive.
Yeah. I'm excited to see him in Leger though, because he's done well there in the past, and he's probably one of the sickest riders to watch, just technique wise.
Yep. And to be fair, he was 6th in qualifying, 4th in semifinals. So he was having a decent weekend, and maybe it was just one of those race runs where things don't go your way. It's hard to pull the focus back in, and it's unfortunate. And see what he does in Leger. He's French. I'm sure he'll go fast. They always do. They always do
fast.
Yep. Stefano Introzzi in 19th.
Dude.
Freaking epic.
Yeah, dude.
91 number plate.
Freaking flip the numbers. Let's go.
Put that thing in top 20. Yeah. That was sick to see. I don't know anything about him, but other than he's a privateer. So he doesn't speak English based on the WinTV interview. Moving down, Richie Rude in 22nd, reminding everybody that he has downhill roots and they're not going anywhere. He blows me away. I mean, I can't imagine he's ridden that Yeti bike too much and isn't riding it leading up to these races that he signs up for. He's just good. There's nothing else to say.
I really want him to actually focus on a couple races.
I know.
And put some effort into it. I mean, some serious effort beforehand to get comfortable on it, and yeah, and ride it like a downhill bike because he still rides it like an enduro bike.
You think?
Yeah,
What do you mean?
he I feel like he's not. It's not as planted as it could be, that bike, and that I think is because he has it set up more so like an enduro bike.
He does.
And then,
yeah, he looks big
Yeah.
on his enduro bike, like on top of the bike, and maybe
Yeah.
I guess that does. Maybe, but it's tough because Richie's just such a like big, strong rider. I'm like, is that just how he looks on a bike? I don't know.
yeah,
Making it work, making that Yeti work. I'm like,
mean,
what is up with that? They just like make a production bike, but it's like this prototype race developed thing, and I'm like, you could be selling that though. It looks like way more of a production bike than the pivot bike, you know?
yeah. That thing
So-
looks like it's pretty sick.
Yeah,
But
it does look cool.
it honestly reminds me of the old 303, like the slider one,
Mhm.
like the dual sliders.
Got some similar pieces in the same place vibe going.
Yeah, I'm like, dude, get the boys back swinging off that
I'm
thing.
about
Get
it.
Blanky back.
Dude, I used to have a slider on my Yeti. The thing was sick. I had to grease it
RDH
over the
you have,
ride.
yeah,
Yeah. RDH.
yeah.
All right, moving down. Joe Breeden in 23rd. Backs up 20th last week. Another good result.
Yep.
9th in semifinals. Maybe a glimmer of what could be, what to come. Sick to see for him.
Mm-hmm.
Greg Minnaar, 25th. The GOAT makes finals. Thank God.
Dude,
After a shit year for the Norco team. Apparently his shoulder is still attached to his body enough to make it down Val di Sole, because that's a gnarly one to finally put it in finals for.
I think he said he had a crash or something as well in practice,
You like hit it more back into
or
place.
like I don't know. But then also that they made huge changes to the bike.
He loves changing his bike. Outside of Greg's a downhill racer first and then a bike modifier second.
Oh yeah, I was like, dude, this man, like, is
Yeah.
crazy.
I've noticed that he's been casually complaining about Fox rear shocks through last year and now this year. And I'm trying to figure out what is going on there, because like
So the other thing was he went back
Dakotah
to
does not say
a
anything.
2019 fork.
Yeah, he went back. He just went back to the Grip 2 damper.
Yeah, well, in his Win TV, I think, or in something, he said that he pulled the cartridge out of a 2019 fork because he liked that fork so much.
Yeah, but it had to have been Grip 2. I don't think
Yeah,
that it would
well,
have fit.
was Grip 2 at that time, but like
Yeah.
whatever he had going on was
Well, between Grip 2 and X2, X2 is like just stands up more. So like
Yeah.
it sounds like he was struggling to figure that out.
no, X2 is opposite. Grip 2 has more ride height and like is like
Mm-mm. I mean, it's a difference in, well, okay. Are we
Like,
talking air
it's more
spring?
air
Or
spring.
Are we
Yeah,
talking air
it's
spring
less-
or
less
damping? You have more
damping.
damping hold up.
like
I think
on
you have
the-
more damping hold up on X2. You have more air spring hold
Yeah.
up on.
so
yeah,
like
but-
your ride height would be because you're using the more of the air spring.
I think that's up for debate and how you set it up. You can have more hold up in your air spring, but I think your middle of the stroke with X2 got a little dead
Let's
feeling.
let this guy talk. Who?
Yeah, we talked about this last week, and you were saying that you have more hold up with X2.
Yeah.
The X2 has the Grip X2 has more damping.
Mhm.
Yeah,
The
Which means that you
previous-
can run it soft off the top.
2019 fork had very minimal damping.
hmm
Greg likes 100 psi and 6 tokens. So Greg just really enjoys minimal damping and a lot of spring, which
Mhm.
is different than what I wouldn't say it's different than what the current fork is. It's just it's a to me the fork feels like it stores like less. It's more of a damped feel. It stores less energy, where the way he would set up his fork would like be a much different feel, like almost polar opposite of what
Mhm.
we're currently doing.
Yeah, I guess that makes sense.
It would ride higher through the majority of stuff, but then give away in big hits.
Yeah. So that's basically what I was saying. Is like it's gonna ride higher. He wants it to be like stiffer off the top and kind of like be sitting up more.
Mm-hmm.
Where Dakotah is getting his ride height through his bars.
Correct. My
Dakotah
fork
could
runs
put
it deep.
you could put
Yeah.
any damper in your fork as long as your bars stay in the same place. You're happy.
But yeah, it seemed like they made a bunch of changes. I was kind of curious to see if they would have, like, dude, if Greg wasn't racing, like, freaking engineer just holding down the team, Kirk McDowell, just imagine that. The whole team's behind the engineer now.
Did anyone see the graffiti to that vandalization that was done to the back of the Norco truck?
No.
Okay. Stand by for the next podcast. We'll try to find a photo.
Wait, just what was it?
It was really funny. Well, some of it was funny. It was actually not funny at all. Actually, delete that I said it was funny, but it was pretty good. They gave Kirk a mustache, and that was really funny.
That's some mature graffiti.
Yeah,
There's a lot of bats of it.
They could have done a lot. I just think it was pretty wild. Like, this is your World Cup drama of the week. Someone has vandalized the pictures on the back of the Norco truck.
Damn, that does suck though.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. It is really bad, but
What are they
pretty
trying
wild.
to ask them for it? By having
Yeah.
those pictures on the back,
Kirk got a mustache.
man.
He should
Pretty
just grow a
good.
mustache now. Got to match his little caricature, you know?
I like Kirk. Kirk is awesome,
Yeah.
dude.
Yeah, he is an epic asset for that Norco program. Like,
Mhm.
Dude,
between
man.
personality, like, I love his personality. He's like so calm and chill and like very much an engineer, but also very much a racer.
Yeah, I really want him to get into a final this year.
I know he will. He definitely will. Anybody else that I'm kind of skipping over here? We mentioned Pinky crashing. That was a bummer. Toby Meek also
didn't race.
Yep.
Or-
Also crashed, which was
Yeah.
he's on a good weekend, dude. 16th and 13th. Meek boys racing, freaking putting it in there. Yep. Good to see.
Sweet.
Overall, kind of mentioned most of this, but Loic is still in first. Finn jumps from third to second, only 74 points back now. Or wait, sorry, 276 points back, but takes away 74. Troy Brosnan moves from fourth to third, 350 points back. Amaury jumps all the way up to fourth, 383 points back, and Luca drops from second back to fifth, 397 points back. But it's pretty tight, like tight points. What are you back, Dakotah? Do you know?
I was
Dakotah?
12th after the semifinal, and your boy was not happy. I was in the middle of a field in Val di Sole, very unhappy, all by myself for a little while. had to have a talk with myself. But yeah, we're making a comeback. I think I'm seventh in the overall, just
Yeah, you're
behind
seventh right now.
Ronan.
Yep.
So definitely finals definitely was a huge help. I lost a ton of points at Leo Gang. That was not the greatest weekend for me. So it was good to score some points. I mean, it could have been a really good weekend. I felt like I had the pace to be competitive in the semifinal. And it was dry, and I do so well when the conditions are consistent at Val di Sole. So I was really pumped to put one down, but unfortunately a bit out of my control on that one and wasn't able to put a run together. But
What happened?
yeah.
Did you drop in?
We just had a mechanical issue in the run. So
Mm.
it's nothing that I just pretty much just cruised down. Wasn't able to push or anything. So yeah, but it is what it is, and we just keep moving. And yeah, it was good to like bounce back from that into the final and like show the pace that I had and continue to like back up that top 5 pace. You know, I'm continuing to ride like at the front and showing like consistently that I can be a player with the speed that I have. So it's cool. Like, it wasn't great in Poland in the race run, but Leo Gang, I just didn't feel like we really hit the mark on race day, and I had some issues too. So yeah, it's cool to like get the setup right and gamble a bit on race day and see it pay off. Trust my instincts.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the semifinals. I know we talked about it when semifinals first came out, like 2 years ago, how difficult it'd be, like mentally and physically, to do 2 runs in a day. And I think we really saw that this weekend at Val di Sole. Just like with everyone, it seemed real difficult.
Yeah.
But
and I think it would have been a good time for me, like being like a stronger rider in terms of like when it gets really rough. I don't really suffer from arm pump or have any issues with the longer rough tracks. Like I think that would have been a time when I could have really shined. But who knows? Like, yeah, that could have really affected my race day too. Like if I was, dropping at the very end, not with the weather, but just like, I mean, for sure that adds a lot of pressure too. It was a bit easier just to go throughout my race day and get the job done and cruise in, cruise out, and it was low stress and no drama, and nobody was freaking out and business as usual.
Yeah, but I think also going off that is the points in the semifinals have mattered a lot more than one would expect, I think.
Big time. Like you would think, well, on a weekend when I went 2-2, I should have been coming out like looking really good in the overall. And because of the semifinal, I'm just coming out where I went in, which is like crazy to me.
And that's where like Loic has done so well. Also, Loris Bergier, like he's kind of been making up all his points in those like semis and qualifying.
Yeah. It's on one hand, I kind of enjoy it from just a spectator perspective because it's cool to see where people land and fall, and you can do well here but not well there, and it does pay consistency. But then the reality also is that like it's downhill racing, and I think the format always needs to be like who's fastest come race day. And not that there isn't still that person, but we're not exactly always rewarding that the most. So yeah, I was thinking about it. I'm like, what would it take for all of the protected riders just to be like, we're not going to do semifinals. We're all not going to get the points. And then you'll get some other people in there for the race. And then it just is race day, I don't know. It's going to go away next year. I'm done talking about it, but semifinals is dead. Yeah. Okay. Moving on. Burgtec, Labor of Love Award, highlighting our who had a great weekend that isn't on a factory program. $200 to the winner of this. I have 2 names listed there. You guys have a say?
I feel like this one's real tough.
It is real tough. They're both going to actually be real tough for me to get a hold of as well, which is not a factor, but is a kind of a factor.
Dude.
I also can have Dakotah just cash in hand, give cash to people.
Yeah,
we should start doing that and filming it. I think for me, like, dude, banging off a quali and a semi and then delivering on the race day and elite is like pretty unreal. Man, that's pretty cool if you ask me.
Yeah, it's a tough one. Okay, I'll make the call. Stefano Introsi in 19th. He gets our Burgtec Labor Love Award for Val di Sole. Ellis Vegby with the back-to-back 4th places is right there. And maybe the one asterisk for me is that she probably could have she would have been second or contending for the win had she not gone down. So that means there's more in the tank, and that means there's going to be another opportunity this year for her to have a standout ride where I think she can do it, and I think she'll take it then. So
this is the Swedish girl?
Yes.
Frida gave her a set of pants. We're good. We're moving forward. She's pretty much got factory support at this point in time. Maybe we can Frida.
Frida.
Yeah, she's on. She got a set of union pants off Frida. So yeah, I think she got a little help this week, and she keeps it on 2 wheels. Then she'll be up for the award next week.
Yeah.
But that was a huge crash.
Yeah.
Huge.
Dude, I'm so happy she's okay. Like full pancake splat.
Yeah.
Terrible.
You don't want to see it.
Dude, gnarly.
I guess she
Gnarly.
picked. No, I mean, she was everything about it was still bad. I guess she didn't
Yeah.
land on any rocks, thank God. So
She got lucky because she swapped for quite a large amount of time, and it's crazy how fast those girls are going. She's just standing tall and just ripping.
Mhm.
Wild.
And from
Yeah.
like left field, like who are you? Where have you been?
Where did you
know?
go? Where did you come from?
Yeah.
No, I think
Yeah,
it's
it's sick.
the Stefano one is pretty cool for me because like I had my first standout ride. I got 14th at Val di Sole in finals, like as a nobody. So I think that's pretty cool. Man,
Yeah,
try to reward that. Like you meet a lot of really fast dudes that have really refined racecraft. So yeah, that one's worthy for me in my personal opinion. You start crushing it in the main in the big boy class on the in main day center stage under crazy conditions. We should buy beer.
Mhm.
Yeah, I like it. Perfect. Well, I'll try to reach out to him and see if I can get through to him somehow, and then seeing depending on how that goes, maybe I'll reach out to you, Dak, to help me in person in Leger.
Can
Um,
do.
Same with Lucas Dodora. I usually
Mhm.
message people on Instagram to let them know they won and figure out how to get them their money, and he doesn't follow me, so I can't message him. So
Oh, I can do something about this. I've been seeing him quite a lot. So
all right. Yeah,
easy.
I'll maybe just bug him and tell him to like message me back on Instagram and I'll deal with it.
Cool. Can do.
Sick. Alrighty. We've ran long as usual.
It's dinner
Leger
time.
in 2 weeks. I know it's lunchtime.
Yeah.
I don't really have any notes written down other than what do you guys think of the track? Is it gonna be a good race? I think it's gonna be a sick race. Frenchies are gonna be up there. I think Amaury could win again.
It's a 4th of July race, right?
It is.
Or I mean, it's before.
Listen,
I think 4th of July is Friday maybe or
Okay.
Thursday before, so it's during the race.
All right.
that boy better ride fast because there's gonna be a screaming eagle coming down the track after him. And these colors don't run. Not even over here. They don't run.
That's
I'm
right.
coming.
Was
Come
it?
on, boy.
What did you qualify? Or you semifinaled last year, like first or second, and then you crashed in your race run? Is that what happened?
Third. Third. And it was So
It's a little slide out, but it's all right. That means you know you got the speed
Come on.
there.
Hey,
come on.
bulk it up. Bulk it up.
Come on.
If
Come
if
on.
it rains there, is that track terrifying?
Lethal.
Okay.
Absolutely lethal.
So we'll hope for a dry race.
Oh, the other
Yes.
thing on the people out, Reese Wilson, kind of real bummer.
Oh,
Yeah,
Yeah, he's been struggling, man, to get that momentum going. It's a bummer.
yeah.
Yeah.
Hopefully his shoulder's all good.
I know. Yeah, that one sucks to see. Like, I'm happy he's still around at the races right
Mhm.
now, and hopefully he just sticks around even if he's not able to race because he's such a dope personality to have a part of the sport.
And
So.
him and Aaron just really getting kicked while they're down, kind of thing. Like,
They really are,
rode-
yeah.
he rode in front of me and slid me for a practice run, and it was incredible. Like Warren Niss in front of me, incredible. Like the dude was over here, and then he was over here, and then he was back over here, and he was crossing, turning off of stuff that I didn't know existed, drifting, sliding. I was like, this dude is unreal in the whack.
while we have the old Warren-ness on the mind here, let's talk about Hangtown.
Yeah,
That
Warren
man
raced Hangtown.
on the plated dual sport,
Mhm.
hitting the 150 footer. Go to his Instagram. Go watch the clips there.
Dude's
We
a
need-
savage.
We need to set up sometime in the future with our Vital MX dudes, like a mountain bike moto race.
Dude,
Because there are some fast dudes. Like,
Warren, Jubal, Dak, like,
dude, get Loic and Loris out there just cause.
mhm.
I think
Reese-
Loris is pretty good. Reese is
Reese
good.
probably
on the
wouldn't,
Yeah,
probably
Loris.
wouldn't show up for it, but
Mhm.
after
Our
the
boy
last
Dak would
time
probably
he was
clean
here.
house. Yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
Reese might not want to ride their bike in America.
I would like to think that I would have some smoke, but it's hard to say. Warren is a wild card.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think
There's some
between
competition.
Dak, Warren, Jubal,
Yeah.
I
Could
feel
be
like
good.
I think the US
Yeah.
boys would come out on top for sure.
yeah. I mean, dude, yeah, you could have some of the Northwest boys that are pretty good at riding moto too. But
Man, I got to put that. I really don't want to plan that
AHK?
one, but I'll put that out there. Dude, there's there's some names in the bunch, and what better way to risk your downhill career in the off season than with a dirt bike race?
I mean, welcome to my life, brother.
That's right. I forget that
I-
you're an amateur motocross racer. Your race is
Pro-am.
professional downhill on the side.
I have. It's literally the truth. I have a very competitive sprint, 30+ sprint enduro career going. All right. We are.
What's
I'm a
the
competitive amateur motocross racer.
what's the first place payout at one of those enduro races you do? Moto enduro races.
It was, if you were riding a Honda, it was $3,000 in contingency to win.
So it's pretty much a World Cup win.
I can go to a Pro-Am in 450A Pro Sport and make more money in a weekend than I do racing than I made at the Tennessee National in a weekend and not win.
What about at a World Cup?
No. Well, the bonuses are pretty unreal. But
Okay.
I-
yeah. What about
Yeah,
you take
the
out the
bonuses
bonuses
help.
though? Because you could get sponsors in moto if you went full time in that.
yeah, I think I can. I forget that we're like talking in front of a lot of people. Yeah. Like I think if you win one moto, if you have like a half gate, a moto win is like $800.
Yeah, you do it twice on a day.
You do that
Yeah, you
twice,
go
you're on
1-1 on the day.
World
Then
Cup.
you get 300 hours in contingency per class, pay per class. You do ride 25+ in pro sport, you can do pretty well on a day. I mean, you tear a lot of stuff up, maybe including yourself, but you can do well.
Hit up
But
the boys at
the
Motorsport.
contingency is good. Yeah, shout out to my boys at Motorsport, keeping my amateur motocross career alive, honestly, at this point.
Oh, I love it.
But yeah, we need to get the moto race going. I think we could get Josh Hill to come out. I think Cade Clayson would come out. Maybe we could get Dakotah Alex, Anthony Rodriguez. Maybe get a little combined 1-lap sprint on the moto, 1-lap downhill race, compare some time, see who's got the
Villapoto's raced mountain bikes up north.
Yeah.
So
Villapoto's fast, and he would clean house. He's so fast on a dirt bike.
Get Tomac in there just cause for the history aspect.
Might as well
Johnny.
call the dude up.
I saw
Palmer?
Tomac in oh my god, Palmer. Did I tell my Palmer story on the podcast?
I don't think so.
Oh my god! All right, that's how we'll close this out with the kind of a subpar Palmer story. But
No, this is pretty good. It's pretty on. Last
it is
time I
pretty-
saw Palmer was at In-N-Out in Auburn in 2019, maybe.
wow, that's just as
And-
random.
Yeah, in Auburn at In-N-Out, and I chatted with him for a bit, and he remembered who I was. It was super random.
Better than me. Yeah, the Palmer is kind of like he's like the have you seen him guy. You know, like where was he last seen? But I live in San Diego. I was on a road bike ride just around the bay 2 weekends ago, and we're cruising along. If you've ever been to San Diego, there's a lot of waterfront in the bay, but there's not really much there. The airport's near there. So there's just a boardwalk bike path kind of in no man's land between like downtown and Point Loma. And girlfriend and I were cruising, and we're like actively chatting about how if you're like walking where we are, you're just like really on a committed walk because there's nothing around there. It's just like boat shops and harbor shit, you know? And all of a sudden I look up, I'm like, man, this dude's got some interesting leg tattoos. Why do they look so freaking familiar? And as we get closer, this guy turns as we're like coming up next to him, and he was like, yo, how much further to Point Loma? I like look at him and I'm like, holy shit, you're Sean Palmer. And he goes, that I am. Palmer's just walking in San Diego by the beach, apparently heading to Point Loma. And all I could think of in the moment was like, you're freaking Sean Palmer. Like I was so caught off guard. And I've met him in the past when he was like doing the intense project team stuff. And I think I even stayed with them in Leogaina 1 year. So like he has no reason to remember me, but like I forget I've been around him some. He didn't remember me. It was really brief. I was like on my road bike, slowly pedaling, trying to talk to him. And I was like, yeah, Point Loma was so much further. And I was like, only thing I told him was I work for Vital because I just figured maybe at some point in the future he'd remember that and then come ask us for something. But Blake Motley figured it out. He was in Mexico for stem cells. Is that what it is?
Oh,
Is that what you do
yeah.
when you got like injuries and shit?
Mhm.
Yeah. So that's why he was in San Diego. So hopefully he's on the up and up. He wasn't down there just walking the streets as it appeared, but he was on a walk, let me tell you. So yeah, there's your Palmer update. That's where the legends of mountain biking are currently at. My computer's about to die. I think we're done.
Yep.
All right. Thanks everybody for listening
Later.
to the B Practice podcast. Thank you, Maxxis Burgtec, Industry 9 for continuing to support whatever the heck you want to call this. We'll see everybody in a couple of weeks after Leger. Good luck, Dak.
Thank
Do
you.
well.